Welcome back to the Creative James Media YouTube channel, everybody. Thanks for joining me. I'm your host, Matt, and today we have another wonderful author interview for you. Today we have Sam, otherwise known as SC Alban, and we are going to be talking about her writing and her upcoming release, Life Without Living, um, which releases here really soon as this drops. So you guys will get to literally watch this interview and then go pick yourself up a copy. Um, we're going to be talking about a variety of things from writing to publishing and just life in general and whatever else we decide that we want to talk about today. So without further ado, Sam, how are you?
I'm doing great, Matt. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Why don't you share a few things about yourself for those who don't know you?
Yeah, sure. My name's Sam, and just I'm originally just a California gal, but I currently live in the Pacific Northwest. Um, I'm up here and teaching during the day and just creating and writing at night with my sidekick, Mr. Teo. He's around here somewhere. So yeah, just
um, yeah, go ahead. What grade do you teach?
I'm in elementary school.
Elementary. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm in elementary school. The littles, yeah, I do the littles, kindergarten through third grade. So I'm actually
Oh,
an education specialist.
okay.
So I'm not a typical grade teacher. So I work with a grade band of students.
um, So tell us a little bit about your upcoming release, Life Without Living, because this is a trilogy, correct?
It is. It is a trilogy. Um, yeah. So I'm super excited for it to, it's going to be releasing soon. I think by the time this is
Yeah.
airing, it will
Yes.
have already been released.
Oh, yes. Yes, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I'm really into just kind of like a mystical, um, you know, witchy type of genre. And so this book is kind of like a kind of a classic good versus evil tale, but it kind of follows like the timeless love of the two main characters over over the course of 400 years. They've
Oh,
been kind
wow.
of in this battle to try to find each other. And of course, I got the main baddie following them throughout time and, foiling their attempts to be together. Um, so the story takes place in current time. And hopefully, this will be the last time that they'll have to battle, Alessandro. But we shall see. Yeah. So,
That see 400 years. That now the title makes sense to me.
yes.
Um, because when I first got a hold of your book, I was like, okay. I'm always interested in where the titles come from because sometimes it has a lot of meaning to it, and sometimes it's just like, oh, hey, this sounds good, so let me
Yeah.
use it.
Well, that's what the title, because they have these two characters and they're alive and they have, they're making their way through time and they've been alive for a very long time, but they've never really truly lived.
Right.
It's a love story and it's about not having that part of yourself that you just, you're not truly alive without that little spark,
Right.
without that spark. So that's kind of where the title came from.
Where did your inspiration come from for writing this particular book?
Well, I mentioned before, I really kind of like that whole like magic genre. I'm a romantic at heart, so inspiration, uh, bits of movie scene, just little things I see on the street. Sometimes little magic things that happen in your life, little synchronicities. It's hard to pick one thing that is the inspiration to this book because I feel like it was very like organically like this little thing here and this little thing here and just kind of like this need to kind of tell a story.
Right.
I'm a storyteller. I do it in my job, my day job, but in college I was also, you know, in the arts, and so and a storyteller at heart. So how can I tell a good story? And then just seeing a little bit here, and oh, that might be something, and a little bit there, and then just kind of like having that need to
Right.
kind of create and tell the story.
So would you say like a one of those typical love movies, but in a book format, so to speak?
I would say it's a lot darker. We're battling evil here. So it's a lot darker. It's definitely adult themed.
Right.
It is not, you know, it's not for kids. So you know, there are definitely dark themes, domestic, some violence in there. You know, there's a little bit of a, you know, murder, a little murder.
Just a little bit.
So it's definitely there's, I would say, so not your typical romance
Right.
novel. It's a little edgier than I like a Hallmark, you know, a
Oh
little
gosh.
edgier.
Yeah, I would say so. You know, was there a particular character or scene that you really enjoyed writing more than the rest?
Um, I always like writing, and I'm sure I know, well, I know I'm not the only one, but when I'm writing some really good conflict dialogue, arguments, um, when the bad guy, you know, when those baddies are doing their thing and they're just being awful, um, that's kind of fun. It's kind of fun, you know. It's like I could really think outside of the box for that, and really like, how do I put an emotion behind that? What would somebody say if they're really just trying to get at somebody? You know, like they're kind of fun to
Right.
write. It's very, probably because it's so different than like I would never say some of the things. I'm like, oh my gosh. So, but you know, it's kind of fun to play bad guy. I mean, I know some people who are actresses, you know, actors, and they're always like, I want to be the murderer. I want to be the murderer, you know, or you know, in the show. It's kind of a way for somebody to step in and do something different.
Right.
So that's
Yeah.
kind of, they were really fun to write.
Yeah, like you just you want that opportunity to play something that you know that you would never ever
Did you
do.
never do?
And it's like
Yeah,
I think that's the fun part about writing though, is that uh, we as the creators can just kind of shape and mold however exactly we want. So if there's something that we've ever wanted to do or something we've ever wanted to say, but we're like, look, that's probably not good for me to say, we could put it in our book.
exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
how did you come up with a name for your main character? Was that some sort of specific inspiration, or was it just this kind of fits with the time period of the story?
For my, for the male main character, that because the characters, their actual birth year, I did have to, I kind of looked around for what names would be appropriate in that region.
Right.
They're from Italy, so I kind of had to do a little research and just find out what would be appropriate names, and also names that I could kind of alter, as they did different iterations of the of time.
Right.
So there were kind of all variations. So in my book, you know, Kate, um, but the original name is Katerina. So just I I just kind of looked around and kind of did some research. I wanted it to be, you know, it's not by any means historical, but I wanted it to, you know, hold a little bit of water,
Right. So
and I wanted it to
basically,
be a little accurate.
right. So basically, you wanted names that when you started in your original time period, it would fit, but then you also wanted to have names that
I
as
could,
they go on they can change into more modern names, but still
Yeah,
kind of feel the same.
exactly. I just wanted to be able to modernize it a little bit.
Right.
So,
Have you written any other books before this?
um, uh, this one is actually this one was my first novel
Okay.
that I've written. I do have another book that I wrote after this one. Um, and it was a YA novel. Um, and a, you know, I would say I wrote it with the intention of like an 11 to 15-year-old in mind. So kind of
Okay.
like an older middle
Preteenish.
grade, yeah, preteenish type of
Okay.
story. So, and that one, uh, but that was, so I've written that as well. And then I've written books 2 and 3.
I
This
was just
one.
about to ask that. I was like, are you done with 2 and 3 already?
Yeah, 2 is done. 2 is
Okay.
actually going to be releasing, I think, later this fall of 2025.
Right.
And so, yeah, 2 is well into production. And then book 3, it's nearly finished. So it's exciting, and just to kind of see like the whole thing and be able to be like, oh my gosh, here's the story from this page all the way to the end. It's pretty cool.
Because I think that's something that we as writers don't always think about when we're writing trilogies or even sometimes standalones. We get from the front half of our book and we're done, and then we're like, oh, well, I didn't even think about how long that actually takes. 'Cause-
Yeah, it's well, honestly, this was never supposed to be a trilogy. I was writing it as a standalone. And
okay.
then I kind of got to a point in the story and I kind of ended it. And I thought, well, it's not finished. I mean, it ends, but there's so much more that could happen, and I can't possibly put that in one book because then I have to write like a whole. And so I was like, okay, so I guess it might be like a duo. Maybe
Right.
it's just like 2 books. Like, and then I got to the end of that book, and I was like, but wait, there's just a little bit more. And so, and hence book 3.
Did you, at any point in time, did you have a hard time trying to decide where you wanted to stop each book at? Because I know sometimes that can be sort of a tricky thing, especially if you don't already have the idea that you're putting it into a trilogy, but then you realize, oh, this is too long. I got to cut it up. It's kind of different versus where you're at.
Yeah, well, when you're writing the book, well, I'm not sure how to say it like so that it makes sense, but I was thinking when I was writing the first book, you have your story arc.
Right.
Um, and you just want everything to kind of be satisfied at the end of that. But then when I got to the end, I realized that story arc that I wrote could really be extended. Like, it wasn't quite finished.
Right.
So when I was thinking about taking it to other books, I was like, okay, so I'm starting here and I could end there. But within those books, they also have to have like little mini arcs. So I was like, okay, so now what else could happen? What could I make, or what are they going to fight this time, or what's going to happen? What can I sum up and satisfy,
Right.
and then still keep making progress on the larger story. So it's like writing 2 stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, would you say you're more of a plotter or a pantser?
It depends on the day. um, the first book was definitely a pantser. I didn't have any experience. I was just had to get it out. It was just, I just wanted to put it all on the paper, and that was that. So I kind of just went with it, but it was difficult. And I came across problems and I was like, and I forgot what I had
Yep.
written. So like by the end of the book, and I get there, and then I go and I read back, and I'm like, but wait, it doesn't make any sense. So then I turned into a little bit more structured of a plotter, just to make sure that I was hitting all the story points and making sure that I wasn't forgetting. One thing that was really helpful in my process is I started really to do character sheets. That was huge, because it helped me get a good sense of who they are. So then as I moved through, I had and if I forgot, I'm like, I could always pull their character sheet and kind of remind myself of like the core value or the core being of that character. That was really big. And that's what that's how I kind of approach a book now. It's a loose plotter. But sometimes it hits you and then you just start writing and you just got to pants it.
I mean,
you just got to pants it.
exactly. I mean, I know that a lot of writers will say, no, you have to have a strict outline, you have to do this, but there's just sometimes that, and I've experienced this too, like with my second book that I wrote, if it hits you, sometimes you just don't have the time. You're like, okay, look, I got this. I got to get it out before I lose it.
Yeah. And like, I always think like the universe gives you these ideas for a reason. And it's our responsibility as any artist or creator, it's your responsibility to get that out. You were given this gift of idea to get out. And if you skip that, or if you miss it, or if you put it off, the universe could very easily just go, boop, here, I'm giving it to that person, and they're going to do it. So it's like, and they might do it a different way. And then you're like, oh, wait, I was going to do it. So you got to take advantage of those moments. And if that means just sitting down and just on the computer and see what happens, then yeah, those are the exciting times too, though.
Yeah.
Those are the moments that kind of, you get fired up on when you're just sitting there and just like, getting it out there.
And I think too, one of the things that people tend to forget, especially if they don't write a lot, is that when we get those kinds of ideas too, there's nothing saying that once we get all that out, we can't, skip backwards and create some sort of little outline. Because I will say it is, you should have at least something, like even if it's just your characters' names and 2 things about them and the places they frequent. Because I learned the hard way and I had to go back. I was having to find myself going back to the beginning of the book every time I forgot something.
Oh, no.
You know how much time that takes when you're going back 80, 100 pages just to look at one thing?
Yeah.
It's just, so I definitely see a case for both ways all the time.
Yeah.
Depending on kind of what's going on. Do you have like a favorite place to write or plot?
I will go everywhere. In my home, I kind of have a little corner that I have a chair that I sit in a lot, and I'm just looking at it right now. But honestly, sometimes if I'm writing like a scene with it could be in a city, or I might just go to that city and like find a cafe or find a bookstore or someplace and just hang out there for a while. I've gotten ideas for characters, people watching, as you know, probably are, ways to describe things, outfits. Just, it's kind of inspiring to kind of be around.
Right.
I'm a people watcher and an observer. So sometimes I like to do that. I just put my headphones on so it doesn't get too loud. But
exactly. I see that's one of the things too. Like I personally have like an app on my phone that no matter where I'm at or what I'm doing, that way I can, if something pops into my head, like either an idea for a book or something for the current book, I can jot it down so I don't forget. And if I'm somewhere where it may provide some inspiration, I can also write that down. So then when I get home, I can look at, okay, did anything come up today that I can work with to maybe either further the story or bolster another part of the story.
Yeah. And the app is a good idea. I've used, my iPhone notes is terrifying. But I mean, I'm not above the back of a receipt, a napkin, my arm,
Yep.
just if it's just a little thing,
Yeah. Well,
Um,
you got to do what you got to do, though. I mean,
yeah.
that's what some people don't understand is like, if especially if you're not a writer or you're not into writing, we don't have control over when inspiration is going to strike or when some detail is going to pop into our head. We could be at a funeral or a family reunion, and for some odd reason, we're like, "Oh, hey, guess what?" And then we're like, "Oh, bad
Mhm.
time," but let me write this down. Because I use Google Docs,
Mhm.
and so I can access that from my phone. And so if I put something in on my phone, as soon as I pull that same document up on my computer, everything is still there. Um,
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's the smarter way to do things to have your parking lot,
yep,
right? Your
I've
literary
learned.
parking lot.
I've learned the hard way. um, in your opinion, what makes a great story?
Oh, I mean, I feel that there's a lot of things that make a great story. I some you know something that I enjoy, and not everyone enjoys it, but I do like a lot of not dialogue, description,
Mhm.
very rich, detailed descriptions, so it can paint a visual. Um, Anne Rice in The Witching Hour. It's one of my all-time faves. Um, I can see it, like the way she, I mean, and she's, does a master class and like that, of course, but her description is beautiful. And I really feel that really enhances the overall experience. But then, there are other times when it's like, I need to have good dialogue.
Right.
Like, this needs to seem real. Like, if your dialogue is stale, if it just seems like, why would you say that? Who says that?
Right.
Yeah, so I do like a good dialogue, um, witty dialogue, um, you know, things that are real, that makes it a little more believable. I
Right.
like that.
A little bit of factual mixed with some fantasy fiction to kind
Mhm.
of create the perfect blend. Yeah, because I think that's what makes certain things great. Because I'm one of those readers that if you can paint me a good enough picture and I can imagine myself in the situation that your characters are in, I'll be honest, I'm 100% more likely to keep reading.
Yeah.
Because if it's if it's not like if it's so far fetched that my brain's just like, hey man, I don't think ever in the history of anything, even in a third dimension, that's gonna happen. I'm like,
Mhm.
I don't know. But if my brain can catch on and it can be like, oh, but wait, it makes it a little better. Um, who are a few of your favorite authors to read and why?
Well, Anne Rice
Yep.
mentioned it. I mean, and it's the way she could tell a story description is just spot on. I do like, if we're talking like classic or like, authors who've been around for, 40, 50 years. Um, I do like a good horror. So I like Stephen King, just something that just kind of makes me go, oh, do I like this? I kind of do. Is that wrong? What does it say
Yeah.
about me? um, so, he's somebody I like to read. If we're doing like classic, like Hemingway is, yeah, I like kind of like that gritty,
Right.
that really kind of rough, gritty. in your face type of that's good too. So
Well, if you like reading horror and witchy stuff, you should definitely check out Mariah's Hall of Shadows.
okay.
Because that one, if that's down your alley, I really think you'd like that one too.
Yeah.
It gave me the chills a couple times. um, Here's a really fun one. If you could have dinner with any writer, living or dead, to pick their brain, to talk writing, or even, ask questions about life, about things that you may be curious about that they might know, who would it be and
That
why?
is so hard. That is the hardest question
That's the point, though.
ever. I don't. I'm just like, and now of course I can't think of a writer. It's like, right, people write. Um, Gosh, you know, I mean, Colleen Hoover. I would like to ask her why
Mhm.
on a couple of her novels. Like, why?
I hear that a lot, honestly, from a few of my
I
female friends who read her all the time. I'm like, I don't understand, so I'm left out.
why did that happen? I haven't read a lot of hers, but I have read a few, and every one I've just been kind of like, I'm not sure. So like, I would be interesting to know what like her process is, or why certain decisions are made.
Right.
Um, that's always that would be very interesting to figure out why people are making certain choices. So for their characters. Sometimes the characters make their own choices.
That's true. That's very true.
And even when we don't want them to. But
Don't I know it? I've been
like,
there.
no.
It's like now I have to write it because you can't help it. It's like you've been writing that character for so long. It's like a natural progression. It's like, okay, I am that person now, so this is what I'm going to do, and this is.
And then they do it, and then you're just like,
Why did I
why
write?
did
Why
you
did I
do
let?
that? And like, what's going to happen? Now I have to keep writing because I don't know what's going to happen. Why did you do that? Yeah.
I think that's the fun part, though. I mean, like
Yeah.
you really want to see what can progress, and you never know what's going to happen, and that's why it's good because you could be pretty much almost done with the story, but then you're like, oh, this character's going to do this, and then that gives you either a whole nother book or a whole nother 5 to 10 pages, and you're like, okay, I'm kind of glad they did do that now. So, um, without giving too much away,
Okay.
what can we look forward to with the rest of the trilogy?
um there will be more magic. Definitely an evolution of our main character. That she's definitely going to in this first book, it's not a secret. She's struggling, she's kind of still figuring out who she is. In book 2, she knows who she is and she has to become it.
Right.
Like become herself again. So there's going to be much more of coming to that realization. Magic, a couple demons, we'll see.
I know that's kind of a hard question because
It is like, I'm trying to think what's not going to give it away. Yeah,
that's the hard part.
Definitely some demons.
One question that I like to ask all of our authors
Mm-hmm.
is, what are a few things that you like about working with us at Creative James Media?
Well, gosh, there's a lot. But I really do. I feel like I have an idea and I could go with it.
Right.
And I feel I'm trusted that there's a lot of trust for me to kind of take my ideas and really flesh them out. And I have a lot of like through editing and just some, throwing ideas back and forth. I'm given a lot of I feel trusted. Like I know what I'm doing, and like that feeling of like, yeah, I can do this, and a lot of freedom to do that and exploration. I really do appreciate that. It's not like I don't have to fit into this perfect little box of genre. I have a lot of flexibility, and I can maybe be a little bolder and make a choice that's a little maybe outside of that genre that might not fit into it. But that's what I really like doing that, and I really appreciate and love that. The team is really knowledgeable and very good with communication, and I really do love that as well.
Before we end off, do you have any signings planned for this release so far that are in the books yet?
I don't have any in the books yet. I'm kind of waiting. There's in my local area, there are a few stores and events happening, like local areas that
Right.
I might be going in the Portland area. So, but it's, it's a winter. It's the winters are beautiful and I love it. And rain is my jam. But summers are when people are out and about, and there's a lot more events and festivals, and that's where I'll be.
Right.
More of the summertime. Yeah.
That
And
seems to be the theme, because there's a lot more vendor shows and little
exactly.
markets and places to get out into.
Yeah, and book shows and
Mhm.
cons and things like that.
Exactly. Well, Sam, thank you so much for taking some time at the end of your evening to film this with us. And we hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening.
No, thank you so much, Matt. It was great. It was great talking with you.
You as well. Have a good night.
All righty. Thanks. Bye.